Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, welcome to Book Bites with Maggie. We're coming to you live from the Napanee Public Library, and today we're going to be talking about teen books. So as we continue on with our virtual program this afternoon, I'm going to have you take a moment, share this post with anybody that you think might like to join us. This is going to be like a virtual reader's advisory. So if you see a book that you are interested in, by all means, you're welcome to speak up. If you have a Napanee Public Library card, let us know and we can put a book on hold for you if something piques your interest. Or you can definitely check out other formats. We'll let you know what titles come in additional formats than what we're holding up. And we will, put them on hold for you so you can pick them up at your convenience. We also have a lot of big things happening in the library this weekend, so go ahead and start sharing while I give you a general announcement of some upcoming programs. This is the 10th year of our program over in our other building. We have Night at the Museum. So for 10 years, they put together little vignettes that bring Napanee history to life. Super fun, perfect for the whole family. And that's going to be Saturday night from 6 until 8 o'clock. Yep. And you can even have like a fast pass so you know exactly what time to show up for your tour guide to take you through the museum. And if you've never been to the Evelyn Lehman Cult Heritage Collection, I highly recommend it. It is super fun to see Napanee history come to life. So that's Saturday night. And then tonight, this evening, we have our Friends of the Napanee Public Library book sale. This is a giant fundraiser for the Friends group. Paying tonight, you can get $5. We'll get you in the door for a pre-sale. And then starting tomorrow, Friday, you can come in during library hours and shop the book sale. We've taken over the upstairs meeting rooms, and items that have been replaced or aren't circulating as well in our collection, different things like that, you'll find upstairs and available for sale. We'll sell books by the pound. So if you like book sales, we've got a great one, and you can come join us and pay 50 cents a pound on Friday, 25 cents a pound on Saturday, and 10 cents a pound on Sunday during our regular library hours. Okay, joining me today is Michaela. She is our, what's your title?
Communications specialist.
There you go. So she's usually behind the camera, but is an avid book reader herself, and so we are going to be talking about specifically the teen genre today on Book Bites. We both got big stacks of books that we want to share with you. And again, as we mentioned before and on previous Book Bites, if there's a book that you are interested in, let us know. We'd be happy to set it aside for you. I did notice that some of the books that are in your stack are written by the same authors that I have in my stack. So I'm going to let you go first. Tell us a little bit about the books that you chose, maybe a little bit of backstory, what you liked about it, or if you haven't read it, tell us why you want to read it.
Okay, so the first book on my stack is Eleanor and Park. It's by Rainbow Rowell. I know that this is one that's Maggie has read too. She actually recommended it to me, so that's why I read it. The story in this book is kind of deep. It deals with some things that, you know, teens deal with. Family issues, relationship issues, issues at school, and the ending is
Heartbreaking,
yeah,
sob-worthy,
yeah. This
totally
is a book that'll
channels
make you
like
cry.
that one episode of Boy Meets World where you're just like, yeah.
Boy
So
Meets World.
it's a sob story.
But the actual book is really good.
It really
and
is.
There is a few trigger warnings in it, for especially violence and like domestic violence,
Yeah,
I guess you would
domestic violence.
say. So just a heads up on that. But I think we have it as a book. This one, we have it as an ebook, and we have it as an e-audiobook. I listened to the e-audiobook, and it was really good. So this is a go-to read, I think, especially for teens, and especially for teens, you know, dealing with some issues, knowing that you're not alone, things like that.
Mhm.
So
That one's won lots of awards, but at the same time, because of the content and the trigger warnings that you mentioned, it's also one that people are often like, no, that's not for me, that's not for my kid.
Yeah.
So just be aware, trigger warnings are there for a purpose, and if they hit too close to home, they can bring emotions that you might not be ready to deal with. So be mindful of that.
And it's got cute artwork in it that kind of gives you an idea of maybe what the characters look like.
Fan art.
So
Love it. Rainbow Rowell also wrote one that's in my stack here. Fangirl is the second one I think I read by Rainbow Rowell, so the same author. This one here takes place in college, so our characters aren't just in high school like a typical YA book, but our young adult protagonists in this one are two sisters. So Ren and Kath are twins, and they also had a really horrible upbringing where they had family issues at home, and what got them through was the solstice of being fans, like ultimate fangirls, the title, Fangirl, of like a fandom called Simon Snow. So Rainbow Rowell also wrote a series called Simon Snow, and that is a fantasy series that she wrote. This one takes place in like one of the readers of that book goes to college. Does that make sense? So she has her own characters featured in her own book. But whatever, it works. It totally works. So in college, they're kind of coming into their own. Can they continue to be huge fans of this fake person, or do they need to just come of age, grow up, grow out of it, and what that looks like from two different perspectives. So Fangirl was an excellent story. I read this one a couple of years ago. Totally different emotional levels from Eleanor and Park, but excellent stories nonetheless. And this one we have is a book, an ebook, and an e-audio book. Okay, what you got for the next one?
So the next one I read probably in high school, but then I think I just re-listened to it a few years ago because we have it as a book. I listened to the audiobook, but we have it as a book and an ebook now. It's kind of creepy, so it's
Like fantasy?
No, I wouldn't call it like fantasy or dystopian. It's just, it's got something that you wouldn't think would happen.
So it's a nightmare.
Kinda, it's more of like a suspense.
Okay.
And it goes through these two characters that, cause there's a trigger warning for this one too, which is suicide, and it's growing at like an alarming rate. So that's what the program is for.
Is to keep people from wanting to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's almost like suicide is like a sickness, and then you go into the program and it's supposed to heal you, and but really it's not what it seems to be. So it's not helping people, it's more or less just like numbing them and turning them into like little teen robots, and nobody wants that. So the two people in here, I think they tried to like make a break for it, like they tried to leave the program. I don't totally remember, but I think they worked together to try to like break themselves out.
So it sounds like an institution. Now I noticed here when you flip this book over that this says book one, so it's part of a series. Is it a duology?
No, I think
a trilogy?
there's four.
A four. Okay.
Yeah, so there's 4 different books. It's either 3 or 4, and it kind of goes through like what the program is, how you get out of the program, what's bad about the program. If you're
But then
at
there's
the,
like character building at the same time.
if you're at the Institute by Stephen King, it kind of reminds you of that, which is a great book too. But this one is focused on teens and how they respond to things like that. So it kind of makes you think like, could they do that? Like almost like, is a little
How far
too
will the
real.
government go?
Yeah. So, but this one, it's like I said, part of a series, and it's pretty good. So.
Almost sounds like you could know it was going to be optioned for film, like ones that have like that built-in setting like that.
This would honestly make such a good movie.
I
It would
like
make
creepy
such
movies,
a good
though.
movie.
We'll see. Let's see if we look back on this episode of Book Bites and see what happens in a couple of years.
This
if
has
that's
been
gonna
out for
happen.
a while. I mean, it's a pretty old book, but still,
That's
could
okay.
happen.
The teen genre is relatively new. I'd say probably in the last 15, 20 years did this genre really take off, where authors, publishers deliberately looked for teen protagonists and were telling stories from their point of view. I'm in my mid-30s, so like growing up there really wasn't that niche. So you would go from reading Babysitter's Club and chapter books to now what? And you're kind of thrown into the adult books. So this fits that genre gap, is geared more towards like 13 to 18-year-olds. Again, like I mentioned in one of these earlier ones, can go all the way through some like college age students. So it's a very wide open genre that can touch on anything from historical to fantasy to realistic to contemporary to romance to mystery, all different types of topics. And you don't have to read them just if you're a teenager. They're really for everybody. And they make excellent book talks. So if you're looking for a book to share with maybe your teenager at home, reading a book that's geared towards them is still going to open up lots of avenues for discussion. The next book that I have here for you is Only a Breath Apart. This is by Katie McGarry, and I met Katie. She was absolutely amazing. I met her down at RosieCon a couple of years ago, and she is a teen mom. Her twins are 19 years old and just left for college, and she's going through her own set of emotions. And because she has such an intimate memory of being a teen herself and now raising teenagers, she can put those emotions and those feelings into the characters that she creates. I got to experience this book as an ARC, so an advanced reader's copy, before it actually came out. And reading it, I got to like immerse myself in this story of I am one of the first people in the world to read this book. And it was such a pleasure to me because kind of like what Michaela mentioned earlier, the emotions that come through the characters is exactly how I felt reading this book. So tropes is something that's pretty common in stories. So you have like enemies to lovers, you have friends to enemies to lovers, you have different types of tropes. This is one where it's like a childhood best friend sibling set. Excuse me, not siblings. They're just best friends. They live close together, but their economic like upbringing is so drastically different that there's kind of like this Romeo and Juliet pull between their families. Like, you guys should not be together. You shouldn't be getting along because they're so drastically different. But in this book, so Scarlett and Jesse, they live similarly. They have the same age. They're in the same school. And then all of a sudden, as as freshmen in school, they quit being friends. And like seeing somebody who knows the secrets of you walk the halls that no longer talks to you sets this whole spiral of emotions into play. You really get to know Jesse and Scarlett separately, and then when you see the way that they react together, it really is an interesting storyline. Only a Breath Apart was a fantastic read for me. It was a five-star read, but it does have some trigger warnings because there is abuse in one of their homes. And as far as teen books go, oftentimes the authors will write in the way that teens speak. Mm-hmm. So it's not uncommon to have foul language. It's not uncommon to have, I just totally lost my train of thought. What is, like, slang, whatever the current and modern slang is, that comes through in lots of books. In this story, Only a Breath Apart, this one, you get the sense of what like social media has brought to the storyline as well. And so when you're reading this, I don't know. I love it. Just read it.
So when did that come out?
I read it in 2019, so I think 2020, early 2020, maybe.
Yeah. Is it a debut?
Oh no, she's written lots. Yeah, she has the Thunder Road series and Say You'll Remember Me. She's got lots of books. I don't know how many of them we have as physical books in our collection, but we do have a lot of digital versions of her book. So Only a Breath Apart is the physical book that I'm holding up, and it also is an ebook in Libby and Overdrive that we have. Something that you could check out as well. So fantastic book. This one is a little bit softer. There's not a lot of foul language in it. And as far as like the physical intimacy scenes, they're not super descriptive, and they're more like cuddling and stuff. So it's no sexual innuendos with this one. Okay, you wanna do another one?
Yeah. So this next one is for fans of fantasy books. This one is a fantasy series. It's almost as if Rapunzel meets like something dark and twisty. Like the dark and twisty version of Rapunzel is what this book is.
Is it a twisted fairy tale? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Is it a Rapunzel retelling?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
The main character is the lost princess trapped in the tower. But what kind of sets it apart is she is blind, the main character is, and the world was like taken over by, there was like an eclipse that happened that never went away.
So it's like dark all the time?
Permanent darkness, like pitch black. And there's like monsters that come out like certain hours. Like you get like a little bit of dusk, I think, for like 1 hour a day. And that's when you can go outside and you can, but any other time there's like these monsters that are also blind, but they can like smell you and hear you, and it's just crazy. So the lost princess wants to get out of the tower, and someone comes who's looking for like the land of like light, so where it's not always dark, and finds the tower, and they get out and go on an adventure.
This isn't a super thick book. Is it part of a series?
I think there's another one. I know it says book 1. I have not read the second one.
Do you feel like it comes to a completion? Maybe it has different characters in the second.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it didn't leave on like a cliffhanger or anything, but there's more that could go on with their story. But it's just kind of something that you can escape into, and
I don't like monsters. I don't even like spiders.
It's not like scary. I wouldn't say it's scary. It's a little bit suspenseful, but more just fantasy, stuff like that.
Escapism.
So, yeah, and definitely like a retelling of Rapunzel. So
you said your main character in that one is blind. The main character in Alison Gervais's The Silence Between Us, our main character is deaf. She was born hearing, but got meningitis when she was a child. And so she lost her ability to speak and to hear, and so she's learned ASL. She is extremely brilliant and has, up until the start of this book, been able and fortunate enough to go to a deaf school. So all of her teachers, her class, her co-students, classmates, they all know ASL as well. Now in our story, Maya, she is the oldest daughter to a single mom. Her little brother is also experiencing a lot of health needs, and so they relocate across country so that he can be closer to the specialists that he needs, and in doing so, Maya has to leave her deaf school, and she experiences like a hearing school for the first time. So the ins and outs of the story, coming from a perspective where you can't speak the language of all of your classmates, and what it looks like to have a interpreter with you. This was a story that really made a profound impact on me because of the way that it was written. So when you are physically flipping through the pages, the text and the fonts change based on what is actually happening. So if Maya or her mom or some of the classmates that do care enough to start to learn ASL so that they can communicate with Maya, when they are using ASL, the text is one way. And when there's English dialogue and actual spoken word going on, it's written in a different way. So you really get, even with just the font changes, you get the full feeling of the story. I have never experienced that before, but if you're looking for a book that's really going to make you think about how good you have it and to have a chance to walk in somebody else's shoes, I highly recommend this book. Alison Gervais actually started out as a Wattpad author, so for those people who they have a gift of writing but they just need an online platform, they write and put books on the computer, put books on the internet for people to read, and she was selected by a publisher, and she wrote this book, and absolutely phenomenal. I hope she writes more. She does have another book out that I think we've talked about before on Book Bites, in 27 Days. We have that one here in our collection as well, but that one is also a teen book, and that one has been optioned for film as well. So you might be hearing more about this name when that other book that she wrote comes to the screen. But this one we have as a physical book, and I definitely recommend that you read the physical book again so that you can get the full feeling of the difference in the text, so that you get to experience what it's like to be a deaf teenager at a hearing school. You want to do another one?
Sure. So the next one I have is The Slated. It's a series. I think there's 3 of them. We have it as a book, as an ebook, and it's written by Terry. That's what that says, right?
Yeah.
Terry. And it's similar to the program. It's kind of as if the main character goes into a facility and her memory gets wiped. and everybody in the facility, like, their memory gets wiped, and they, like, give you kind of, like, false memories and, you know, stick you back in a place, and this is how you're supposed to live your life, this is the person you were. And she thought she lost everything, but she starts getting, like, little pieces back. So she's supposed to be wiped, but she's not, but she plays it off as if she's wiped, and then, like, it has some suspense moments where she thinks people know and they're following her, and there's this whole thing.
You like dark books.
Yeah, so it's a little dark and twisty. I like dark and twisty, so takes you on that suspenseful journey and kind of has that government poking around in the background type of vibe. And people, you know, playing the system to try to get out of the system. So that is slated, and there is a few of these, and they kind of grow with the main character. Like, you know, as she's growing, she's learning things and going on different adventures to get out of it. There's a little bit of romance in this one, just like the program, but not a whole lot. It's more focused on the journey to play the system and get out of it alive. So,
What formats do we have that one in?
this is a book and an ebook on Overdrive and Libby.
Very good.
And we also have Hoopla now. I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
look on Hoopla, but it might be on there too.
Yeah.
But it is a few years old. I don't know for sure, but I probably read this closer to when I was in high school. 2012, so
Before you were in high school.
when I was a freshman, yeah. So
Crazy. Our next book actually takes place in high school as well. Moxie is one that might not be very new to many of you. It was optioned for film and was released, I think, on Netflix or maybe Hulu a couple of months ago. Maybe it's been a year ago. I don't know. Moxie takes you on a feminist journey to the high school where our main character, Vivian Carter, attends school. She is absolutely fed up on the dress code and the way that certain students are treated differently than other students. It seems like the football team can do absolutely no wrong, and then there's other students who are constantly being picked on because of their body shapes and what they choose to wear to school. It's not just a book about feminism, but it's also a book for standing up for yourself, and it has lots of good feel-good vibes, and there's also an excellent like mother-daughter bonding experience in this book. So Vivian actually kind of channels her own mom and some of the things that she went through in the 70s growing up and how she learned how to defend herself through the written word. So she would make these zines, which would be like mini magazines, and she would plaster them all over the place to make a message known, to corral people, to start a movement. And so in this story, then Vivian finds her mom's pieces of her own high school experience and then kind of makes a play on that and starts a movement in her own school. So Moxie is goodness, I think I've read this one at least twice already. Is a fantastic book full of empowerment for women. We have this one as a book, an ebook, and then again, it is also a movie, but I can't remember what streaming service it's on. So if you have seen Moxie and you remember what it is, if you wouldn't mind putting it in the comments for us to see if other people are interested in watching the movie and then maybe reading the book, they'll see what your comment is on where that is located. You want to share another one?
okay, so my next book was pretty popular. I have 5 sisters, and I think all of my sisters have read it. But it's a little bit different than the feel-good teen book. So big warning, there's heavy drug use in this book. That's what the main theme is. And it's about, there's a few books that Ellen Hopkins has written kind of in this style. I don't know if they're all the same character. I don't remember, but Crank, which is this book, is her most popular one. And it's about a girl that gets addicted to drugs, and it's a teen girl that gets addicted to drugs, and she doesn't have the best home life. They're a little bit lower on the economic scale, and like on that poverty line. and just how she deals with that. She talks about the monster a lot, which is her addiction, and it goes through that. But to be honest, I hated this book when I read it. And it's not because the story, it makes sense, but it's written in prose, I think you call it. Like, it's strange. It's short paragraphs, sometimes they rhyme, sometimes they don't. It's not poetry, it's a story, it's a novel. But just the way it's written is different. And it kind of helps feed, those issues that the main character is facing. Like, she's going through something really dark, and
it just
you
looks
can tell,
so massive, but then when you're flipping through it, there's
Yeah.
so much white space
Yeah.
inside.
But you can tell, like, when it's something like really bad happening, it's, written all kind of crazy. When she's frazzled, when it's, not very busy, it's just like a few words. You could take some of these out and just use them as quotes, but it goes along the story. And it talks about, like, the guys that she's around, the people she's around, like dealers that are giving her drugs, her parent, like her dad, I think, is in it, and the depression, the anxiety, all the things that come with the disease of addiction. And it dives really deep in that, but it's something that makes you realize that, we don't want to believe that this is something that teens face, but it is. I mean, it's out there. And it makes you open your eyes. You realize more about addiction and how it affects people, and how it affects people that know people that have addictions. And it goes really deep into that. So it is a pretty serious book, but I recommend it. It's pretty good. And then she has written a few more that are in the same kind of style.
What format is that one?
This is a book. We have it in the collection, which is this, and then we also have it as an ebook on Overdrive and Libby.
There you go. The last one that I'm going to share with you today is The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. This is a new book. We just got it within the last couple of months. You know that in our collection, if it has a colorful dot on the binding, it's less than 4 months old, and that it's newer to the library. We have those separated out in our collection, those first 4 months that they are available to check out, and then after that they're integrated into the regular genres and where they were purchased for. But in this story, The Girls I've Been, there's 3 teens, 2 bank robbers, and only one way out. And our main character in this story, her name is Nora. She is the daughter and protege of her mother, who is a con artist. This story absolutely took me on a journey because, the very first scene, she's going into the bank parking lot, and she doesn't realize that she's going to run into people that have lots of drama and all kinds of stuff. She ends up in line at the bank when it is taken over by hostage. People that don't want to let their hostages leave, so they get taken in. And the majority of this story takes place in the bank with lots of flashbacks so that you get to figure out what went wrong between her and her ex-boyfriend and her best friend, and you get all the ins and outs of what their relationship is like, but you also get flashbacks between Nora and her mom and what it was like growing up with a mother who was a con artist and a pathological liar. Nora's ingrained to question everything, not believe what she sees, and some of the skills that she has learned with her mother definitely come into play as something that can either help them or hurt them when they are in the bank, and what happens when the robbers figure out who she is and what she is capable of, and will that put them even more in danger. This story was one that was absolutely fantastic to me, and you don't question the way that your upbringing and the circumstances that you're put into because of the choices that your parents make. You don't question what that looks like when that person then is trying to come into their own and coming of age when you've been affected by all these influences. I went on from this book to read an adult memoir, and I just totally lost my my thought on what the title was, but it's an adult memoir based on Nowhere Girl by Cheryl Diamond, and she was raised to constantly change her name to stay away from the government, but it's a real life story. It's not one like this. And I got many moments where I'm like, oh man, what would Nora have done in this book versus what Cheryl did with her family in that book? Because they lived on the run very, very similarly. So if you're just looking for a great escape book, this might be one that you want to try, but it is very different. You have to be able to follow along with what is current day and what is a memory, and what's building that character development within the story. We have The Girls I've Been is a book and as an ebook on Libby and Overdrive, so I hope you give it a chance.
Is that a quick read? Because it takes like the span of a day is.
Yeah, the whole book takes place in a day. It's a lot of dialogue, so it does read fast. Yeah. But like I'm trying to think, probably they're in the bank for a couple of hours. So yeah, I mean it's a super fast read.
Huh.
What's your last one?
So the last one I have is a feel-good book. It's like a cute, cheesy teen romance. So The Night We Said Yes by Lauren Gibaldi. We have it as a book in the collection. It's rather new, I would say. And it's just something cute. It's actually 2015. That's not very new. But there's a movie on Netflix that just came out. It was like Yes Day, I think it's called.
Okay.
And it's kind of similar to that. So The Night We Said Yes is about two people that go to a party and then they just end up saying yes to everything. Like everything they could think of. Like, do you want to go sit on the top of a building and share secrets? Yes. Do you want to steal something from a convenience store? I don't know if they do that. I don't think they do. But just anything crazy that would come to their mind, they're going to say yes to. And then something that you don't expect happens and kind of puts everything on halt. And then it comes back around full circle. So it's romantic, it's, feel good. There's a little bit of heartbreak in it, but it's resolved in the end, and then you get just that warm feeling oh, that was cute. So it's really sweet and charming, I guess you would say. So just a classic teen romance, The Night We Said Yes.
Fantastic. So I hope what you've gained from this episode of Book Bites is that one, teen books can be for anybody. Don't let anybody tell you that because you're not a teenager anymore you can't read these books. The topics are great, the storylines are quick and rapid, and the character building is awesome. Oftentimes the setting is in high school. Many times it's fantasy, as we've seen between our stacks here. They've varied quite a bit. But if you need help finding our teen genre section here in the library, please stop at one of the service points, ask a staff member. We would be happy to show you where those are. And maybe one of these books will stick out to you. This video is going to live on our Facebook page for a while, so if you watch this not live anymore, but once it's archived and there is a title that stands out to you, you can still come in, check it out from the library. We'd be happy to find those items for you. Our goal is to put the titles in the comments so that you can also refer to those as a quick list of what we have talked about today. Our next Book Bites episode is going to be episode 18 for the year. That's amazing. And we're going to jump all the way from our teen protagonists to elderly points of view. So if you are looking for a main character that you're absolutely going to love and adore, I hope you join us for our next Book Bites. We're going to be right here on Facebook Live. You can watch for us then, and until the next time, we hope to see you at the library. Don't forget to come to the book sale and night at the museum. Thanks so much for joining us.